Hey. Well, welcome back. It's been a long time seeing you guys. We don't have a whole bunch of time, so I want to make sure I'll open up with a quick statement and we'll go right into questions. So, it's a sigh of relief for me to finally say the full-time staff is complete. Obviously, with the hiring Al Golden yesterday, it's been a learning cycle for me, being a first-time head coach. You think you have one vision of how this is going to go, and you realize it doesn't always go as smooth and as easy as you think. But ultimately, I did not want to rush this. I wanted to get the right people, and there was no timetable on what that was to get the right people. And so I felt like we did, and, we got a tremendous amount of energy, of great educators, of great recruiters, of great people, right? People that love young people and that are willing to coach and lead them as their own. And that's my only, the only standard that I had was, hey, I want to make sure that we get great recruiters, but ultimately we bring in guys that care about these young people, because these young people are going to be the reason why we have success. And so you'll get a chance to spend some time with our entire staff, but that's kind of how this whole thing came about. So with that, I'll open up the questions and we'll go from here.
Todd Billard is up first in the back.
Marcus, you may have touched on a little bit there. 7, if my count was correct, you have 7 coaches under the age of 40, including you. You mentioned energy. What are the benefits of having such a young staff?
I think it's the ability to relate to the young people, the ability to relate to young people in high school. The recruiting is so important, and ultimately it's about bringing in the best players you can in the country to this place. And so there is a relatability between sometimes your generation and the young prospects we're recruiting, but it's still, to me, experience and the ability to teach doesn't have an age on it, right? And the ability to recruit doesn't have an age on it, right? Harry Houston can come in here and say, I don't care how old I am, I'm able to recruit, and I know he is, because we can't have 9 good recruiters. We need 10 plus 1, 11 great recruiters, relentless recruiters. And so I was looking for that, and I think we found that.
Patrick Engel is next in the front.
Marcus, when going through the defensive coordinator search, what led you to Al, despite being someone that you hadn't had much of a work history with? And then what did you like about his vision for kind of coming into the defensive structure that you had set up and then you had said you kind of wanted to maintain?
Yeah, I didn't know Al Golden personally, but I know who Al Golden was, right? I knew Al Golden as the head coach at Temple and at Miami, and had an unbelievable reputation. And so it was a unique opportunity for me to kind of interview a person over time. And so we were able to do Zoom interviews while they were, kind of going through their season, just to stay in contact, just to talk. But I wanted to respect his process of preparing each week for the Cincinnati Bengals. And so I was looking for a guy with head coaching experience. That was to me something that we did not have on our staff that I thought was going to be extremely valuable. And he has that, but also a guy that has intelligence. The more we met, the more we talked, I learned right away this person understands football. He understands scheme. And I was also looking for a person that didn't want to come in here and just drop his playbook, right, and say, hey, this is what we're doing. No, Al Golden was a guy that said, hey, let me evaluate what you all are doing. Let me evaluate your players, and let's put together the best scheme, right? And ultimately, he is the defense coordinator. And I want to make sure everybody understands, Al Golden's defense coordinator. Marcus Freeman is not the defense coordinator, and he has to take this thing over. But the ability to come in and to adapt to what our players know, I think, is a huge benefit for our players. My job is to always take care of our players, right? And so this will be their 3rd defensive coordinator in 3 years. And so if you talk about 3 defensive schemes in 3 years, that's difficult. That's tough. But the ability for somebody to come in and say, okay, let me learn what they know, and then let's enhance it from there. That to me was what I was looking for.
And then on the offensive line, when you and Tommy are kind of looking at candidates there, how early did Harry kind of become someone that, 1, given the prior experience here, would fit, but 2, what you guys both wanted in that spot in particular and what made him kind of the natural fit there?
It's probably the first week I was on the job. When we made the decision to make a change at the offensive line coach position, Harry Houston is a name that came from me from multiple different angles, not just Tommy Rees, but from our athletic director, from guys that were in the NFL. Everybody kept coming back to Harry Houston. And so when I met with Harry, I didn't know him. I knew his reputation. He was actually the O-line coach with the Bears when I was drafted there in 2009. And so I knew of him, but his reputation was unbelievable. And so when we met, I was very clear on the expectations of our coaches here at Notre Dame. And he is exactly what we're looking for in our offensive line.
Eric Hansen is next in the front to your right.
Hey, Coach, who did you lean on during this process in terms of helping you put your staff together? And did you talk to the players, at least from the standpoint of maybe traits they were looking for in their coaches?
Yeah, I think a part of it, Tommy was interviewed. When Tommy interviewed a lot of the offensive candidates, he had his players involved, right? And so that was a part of the process really on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I did not get the players involved, but I knew what they were looking for. I knew those guys. I was with them every day. And so I leaned heavily on Tommy Rees on the offensive side of the ball, right? And so you think before you become a head coach, you say, okay, hey, when I become a head coach, I'm making all the hires. Like I'm bringing the guys I know that I trust. That's not what's best for the program, what's best for the team. And so you have to make decisions that are best for the program and are best for the team. And that is to empower your offensive coordinator. And so basically a lot with the majority of hires, I said, Tommy, you bring me your number one candidate and then I'll interview him. But ultimately, I'm going to trust you. If this is the guy you want, let me interview him, let me get to know him, but I'm going to trust you as the offensive coordinator. And that's how we did it. So I leaned heavily on him for the offense coordinator position. I knew Brian Mason personally from Cincinnati and Purdue and Kent State on a personal level. So I knew where I wanted to go with the special teams coordinator. And then with Al Golden, I really leaned on people that have worked with him, people that knew him. I got a former player that plays for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Marcus Bailey. And so I called Marcus Bailey. I said, tell me what type of coach Al Golden is. And the things he said about him is what I hope a former player of mine says about me. And so that spoke volumes to me in terms of hiring Al Golden.
The other question I had was, as you went through this process and learned your new staff's strengths, do you have a better sense of how you'll want to spend your time in meetings, in spring practice, on game day, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Do I have I know what I would love to do, but every day something comes across your desk that takes you out of the meeting rooms. I've tried to be in the offensive meetings at some point when they do installs and something happens and brings you out. That is kind of like my relief. When I can sit in there with the offense for 15 minutes, that's my relief. And when I can go with the defense and spend 15 minutes in there, I get a relief from the everyday head coaching tasks that you have. And so I don't know yet, right? I've never had a spring ball as a head coach. And so I'll learn that. I have a vision for being able to sit in there and see what we're doing defensively, see the enhancements and changes we're making on the defense side of the ball. I want to learn the offense side of the ball. And so if I can get in there and learn what they're doing, it's going to be great. But I don't know what spring's going to entail with the duties that it takes to be the head coach here.
Pete Sampson is next in the front.
Marcus, we mentioned Al and the head coaching experience. Could you describe the gap that needed to be filled in there for you as a first-time head coach? Like what sort of blind spots needed to be sort of rooted out?
Yeah. I talk to Lou Holtz all the time, and he says, I'm going to give you my advice, but not my opinion. And it's something he says every time I talk to him. I'll give you my advice, but not my opinion. I said, okay. And so I think that's what you're looking for in bringing a former head coach on staff, right? Ultimately, somebody has to make a decision. But to lean on people that have done it and have been through this head coaching position, I think is valuable. And somebody that can see things from a different lens is valuable as a head coach. And so I'm not only going to lean on Al Golden, but he's done it, right? I'm going to lean on Tommy Rees and Brian Mason, everybody else that's on our staff and former mentors of mine. But I think there's some value in having somebody sit right next to you that has been in your chair.
What about the fact that you're hiring a DC to run your system? And I'm thinking about this in terms of you a year ago when you came in here, Brian Kelly had said, hey, you're going to run Clark Lee's defense. Mm-hmm. You keep your playbook to yourself. That might be a difficult selling point for some guys. Why was it not with Al?
I don't think that's a fair statement. I'm not hiring him to run my system. I want him to evaluate what we've done, right? And find out how can we enhance from this as a beginning point, right? This is what our players know. We got 2 weeks really from next Thursday. Next Thursday, we got 2 weeks until we start spring ball. You take out spring break. And so it's only fair to the players to kind of say, okay, what do they know? Right. And there's only so many different ways you can play defense. And so if we can try to keep some terminology the same, I think that's going to help tremendously. If Al Golden can evaluate and say, okay, here's what they do, right? Here's what they know. How can we enhance it? I think that's all I'm looking for, as somebody to start and really evaluate where they're at. I didn't have to do it. I came in and said, I really don't care what you guys did last year. Here's what we're doing. And I try to keep some terminology the same. But all I'm saying is evaluate what the kids know, because we have 2 weeks really before we start spring ball. And so that's kind of where we're at. But it's going to be his system. It's not Marcus Freeman's system. It's Al Golden's system for sure.
Tyler Horka is next in the back to your right.
Hey, Marcus, I'm just curious. You obviously said that you leaned on Tommy a lot to get the offensive coaching assistant to fill those positions. I'm curious how you guys landed on Chancey Stuckey, and then a two-part question with that. I think you said that teaching doesn't have an age limit, coaching doesn't have an age limit, kind of with the experience factor in that, being that he's so green. What have you learned about him in the last couple of weeks that makes him a good fit to coach these wide receivers? Yeah,
I think there's a couple answers I want to give you. I think back to myself last year in interviewing Chris O'Leary, right? And he hadn't had the experience of being a coach at this level. And I remember interviewing him and I said, this dude is special. He is special. Don't make the mistake that I feel maybe some guys might have made on me because of my age when I was younger, right? And I said, I don't want to do that. If Chris O'Leary is the best guy for this position, I want to hire him. And we did that. And so it's the same thing kind of when you look at Chancey, right? His resume is not really long, but when they interviewed him and you hear the way people talk about Chancey Stuckey, it's unbelievable. Tommy Rees had a chance to talk to Dabo Sweeney about him. I talked to Tony Elliott, who played with him, I think, at Clemson. I talked to Dave Aranda. And it's always interesting to talk to a current head coach of a position coach, right? It's not always great, but the things Dave Aranda said about him, I was blown away. And so I wanted Tommy to put him through the X's and O's, right? You can teach me how to run a post, a corner, and a comeback, and I'm like, oh, you're good. But Tommy put him through the ringer. Tommy came in and said, he's the guy I want. So I said, let me interview him. I spent 30, 45 minutes. I'm like, he's the right person. He's the right person for our program. And so that's ultimately how we decided on Chancey. In terms of age is again, you know, a guy like Harry Heaston, have him in my office and say, your job's to recruit the best offensive lineman in the country. I got it, right? I got it. That's the expectations. And so that doesn't have an age on it, right? Harry understands his only job in recruiting is to get the best offensive lineman in the country. He's going to do that. And he has a passion for it, right? And so that's all I'm saying is that age doesn't – you can be young and be a great recruiter. You can be experienced and be a great recruiter. You can be young and be a great X and O's coach, and you can be experienced and be a great X and O's coach. So those are just the elements, the qualities I was looking for in making those hires.
John Bryce is next in the front.
Hey, Marcus, you referenced a couple of times it doesn't need 9 or 10 good recruiters. It's got to be 11 good recruiters. So what in your mind makes up a good recruiter? And now that you have your staff complete, how will you kind of deploy those guys in recruiting?
It starts with work ethic. I think you have to be a relentless worker to be a relentless recruiter. And there's times that we all, as coaches, don't feel like having this conversation with a kid, but you have to. You have to. It's about putting in the effort, getting on the phone and making sure that you're developing a relationship with the kid, with the parents, with the coach, and anybody that has an impact on this kid. And so that to me is what makes a really good recruiter, somebody that's willing to work at it and be very intentional about the relationships he's trying to build with that person. But also it's the evaluation, right? It's the ability to evaluate. We all can look at the different ratings and websites and say, okay, we're going to recruit X, Y, and Z because they have offers, they have high ratings. But to truly evaluate and figure out, is that kid talent-wise the best player for this program? And then develop a relationship and see, is he as a person the right fit for Notre Dame? Because not every kid is. And so that to me is what we're looking for in relentless recruiters.
And then you referenced there were some twists and turns along the way to getting this staff completed. And then once you made a couple of hires or had retained a couple of guys, you had some NFL teams come after them, some other Power 5 teams come after them. So what do you credit to being able to keep some of these coaches, and what did you take or learn from that process?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the selling point is, do you want to be at Notre Dame? Do you believe in what Notre Dame can do for your future, right? And we're not looking to match. We're not looking to do anything. We're trying to say, hey, here's the position. Do you believe this is what's best for your career? I mean, I had to fight guys for our offensive coordinator. right? Obviously, I know it's out there that there's a lot of teams and a certain team that won him a couple of weeks ago. And so ultimately my conversation with Tommy Rees is, do you want to be here, man? Is this where you want to be? And you know, do you see yourself getting to your ultimate goals from Notre Dame? And obviously we were able to fight off a lot of people to get him. Same thing with Dylan McCullough, same thing with Al Golden. It's when you're at Notre Dame, people want your guys. It's a part of it. When you have success, people want a part of that staff. And so ultimately my job is to continue to lift as I rise, right? I'm a head coach at Notre Dame. It doesn't get any better than that. But I think we have a staff full of people that have goals and aspirations. And our job, my job as head coach, is to try to continue to do what's best for our players here, but also help these coaches, individuals get to their ultimate goal.
Mike Biardino is next in the middle.
What are the benefits of having NFL experience on your coaching staff now? Al, obviously, most recently, and Harry and Tommy and Chancey having played in the league. How will that resonate in the living rooms, and how does it make them better teachers now?
I think right, wrong, or indifferent, you get instant credibility, right? All of a sudden, the players know that Al Golden coaching the Super Bowl. It's like, he coaching the Super Bowl. But I think it's the ability to tell parents, recruits, and current players that I've coached this at the highest level, and that I've coached the best football players, which we all aspire to be as players, college football players. I've coached the best ones at the highest level. And I think you do get an instant credibility when you can say that.
And then recruiting coordinator, how do you see that role going forward?
Right now, we don't have a true title for a position coach being a recruiting coordinator. Right now, Chad Bowden is our director of recruiting. I think we all are recruiting coordinators for our position, right? And I think ultimately your coordinators have the final say so, but I want every position coach to feel like they're the head coach of their position. They're standing on a table for the guys they want to bring in their room. And so we make sure that the coordinators give the thumbs up, but I want all of our position coaches to feel empowered, that they have the loudest voice for who we bring in their position.
And the last thing, since it maybe came out of the blue, Mike Elston, what was that attempt to retain him? Obviously went back to alma mater, but after being here for so long and pledging that he was going to stay, was that a shock? Was that a gut punch? How did that all play out for you? And how hard did you lean on him to try to stay?
Yeah, I was surprised. You know, I didn't expect it, but ultimately, I really care about Mike Elston. I want what was best for Mike Elston. If Mike Elston felt like going back to his alma mater to coach the D-line was what's best for him and his family, I could do nothing but support him. And that's what happened. You know, we had a conversation. I said, hey, tell me what you want. Well, this is an opportunity that I'm really, really intrigued by. Man, I respect that, you know, and that I want to encourage and help in any way I can.
Tim Priester is next in the back.
Marcus, with a veteran athletic director like Jack Swarbrick and you being a young, new head coach, did he play a role? What involvement did he have in the process of choosing a coaching staff?
Yeah, Jack Swarbrick meets with every single candidate we bring in. And that's something that's different than anywhere I've been, where the president of the university, the athletic director meets with all candidates. And I get his feedback and opinion on everybody we bring in. And so that holds a lot of power. It holds a lot of weight in my mind in terms of our athletic director feeling really, really good about the people we bring in. He obviously knew Al Golden from the last head coaching search. And so he knew him on a personal level. And so I evaluate feedback. I really value feedback from a lot of people, but Jack Swarbrick is one.
Off topic from the assistant coaches, but in terms of grad transfers, but specifically transfers, what has been addressed with that? Like in terms of not necessarily making allowances for transfers, but it's harder for transfers than it is grad transfers. What have you guys done in terms of that?
It's all about the right fit. And I had a wonderful meeting with our admissions here at this university, and we have to understand that this university wants to be national champs in terms of higher education, right? And we all have to be aligned. We want to be national champions on a football field. Our university wants to be the best university in the world. And so we have to bring in the right fit. And so Brandon Joseph, right? He's a transfer, and he was the right fit for this place. Some individuals aren't. And so we as a coaching staff have to identify the right fit in terms of looking at their transcript, when they enter transfer portal first, and then looking at the transcript and then seeing if they would be a fit with our admissions.
And how much more involved will you be with transfers in this cycle? How much room do you have?
We're always looking to improve the roster. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we evaluate every opportunity we have to improve our roster.
And we're going to wrap up with Zoom. We're going to go to Ralph Russo. Ralph, go right ahead.
Thanks. Hi, Marcus. I wondered how much this has been alluded to, a 36-year-old head coach with not a huge Rolodex, I would imagine. And you talked about a sigh of relief in getting your staff together. How much did you look at this as maybe the first big challenge for a first-time head coach? Like, how am I going to hit this challenge of hiring a new staff?
Yeah, it is. It's, sometimes change is good, but when you have a vacant opening on your staff, if you let it, you can feel the weight on your shoulders. You can feel, and it's not media as much as it is your players and your coaches. We didn't have a defensive coordinator for quite a time. They need the leadership. The coaches need a leadership. We didn't have position coaches. Those players need a leadership and guidance. And so that to me was the weight. I felt the pressure was like, man, we have to get the right guy, but I want to do it sooner than later because I want Michael Mayer and those tight ends to know who's going to lead them. I want our running backs, Logan Diggs and Chris Tyree and all those Audric, I want them to know who's going to be their leader. The same thing with the O-line and the wideouts. And so you feel a little bit of weight on your shoulders when those openings happen. But to me, it still came down to don't rush it. Find the right fit. And that's why yesterday when Al Golden was announced, it's like, okay, we got the right guys. And it took a little bit more time than I would have expected, but there is no timetable on bringing the right guys here.
Thanks, Coach. That's all the time we have.
Thanks, guys.
Good to go.
Yep. Oh, Tommy, go right ahead. Start with an opening statement.
Awesome. Thanks. First off, just thanks for everyone for being here. Appreciate what you guys do. Katie, thanks for setting it all up. We appreciate that as well. And I'll lastly here, just, thanks to Coach Freeman, his trust, his support, his belief throughout this whirlwind of an offseason here has been tremendous and, extremely supportive of what we've been trying to do together. And, can't thank him enough for the opportunities with the staff and, being here to stand in front of you guys today. I think when you look at all the changes in the offseason and where we're at, there's a new energy, there's a new excitement. I know personally for myself, for our players, for our program, you can definitely feel that the moment you step foot in the building. You can feel it the moment you go into the weight room. You can feel it when you walk into a staff meeting. There's just an unbelievable sense of camaraderie and energy that's been created here over the last couple of months. And that's really a credit to the leadership from the top down. Lastly here, just real brief, when we went through the hiring process, our only goal, our only job, our only duty was to make sure that we were giving our players the very best. At the end of the day, it's about them, the men that are going to lead those positions, the men that are going to help transform their lives. We wanted to put the best people in front of them while also giving them the best opportunities to now go achieve their goals in football and achieve their goals in life. And so when we approached the hiring, that was always in the back of our head. How can we help enhance our players? How can we give them, the best people first, the best coaches second, to make sure that they're able to, achieve their goals on the field as well as off the field.
You guys have questions? Raise your hand. We'll get you the mic.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem. Tyler James, we'll start with you on the left.
Tommy, Dylan McCullough, his addition to the running back position, what do you think he brings and why do you think he's so valuable to the staff?
Yeah, I would start with like an unwavering consistency with who he is every day. He steps in the building, exactly what you're going to get. The first conversation I had with Dylan, I think I was in an airport somewhere traveling, and immediately I think I texted Coach Freeman and said, hey, we need to get this guy on the phone with you ASAP, because he was extremely impressive. I think his energy, his attention to detail within football has been tremendous through these last week or so. You can look at who he's coached, you can look at where he's coached, that all speaks for itself. But when you get in the room with him and you start talking about football and you start talking about coaching the running backs and being a mentor for him, you can see why he's had the success. I mean, there's very little gray area. He is very pointed in the way that he communicates, and that's something that we appreciate right now.
Marcus spoke to Chancey Stuckey's personality and his ability to coach. I'm curious, from your perspective, what stood out to you about him, of his ability to sort of take these steps up in the coaching ranks as fast as he has?
Yeah, Stuck's talking today, right? You guys will see it, I think. I think the moment you're around him, there's an energy, there's a personality there that you immediately put your belief in someone like that. I'm a young coach. I was hired as a young coach. Coach Freeman is a young coach. We were all given opportunities, when some people didn't think we were ready. He played the game at an extremely high level. He was on staff at Clemson, where they do things the right way, for a few years, and then got to run a room, and they had a great year at Baylor. And so, the notion of the inexperience, I really don't look at it that way. He's been in football for an extremely long time. And when you meet the person of who he is, you know that he's going to be able to, one, relate to recruits and have credibility, but two, also help guide and mentor the guys we have on our roster right now.
John McNulty was a tight ends coach who had offensive coordinator experience. Jared Parker has that as well. What sort of value does that bring to the coaching staff? Yeah,
I think anytime you can have staff members that can see things from a holistic standpoint, it helps bring in ideas, and it helps create, really positive banner in terms of trying to game plan and create opportunities. I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to. I like ideas. I like good ideas even more. So when we, have a staff that you trust and have people that have been in your shoes, it helps bring in more, things that can help our team be better. And at the end of the day, that's, as a staff, that's all we're really trying to accomplish.
Tim O'Malley is next in the middle.
The middle with Coach Heastand. Obviously, you had previous experience, and you had teammates and best friends and roommates that would vouch for Harry Heastand. But was there more to it that you were looking for at bringing in a veteran coach there? I know this is before the staff got so young, because he was hired before some other guys, but was part of it that is a guy you can bounce ideas off of that's kind of been through a lot of it in college football?
Yeah, I think with all the hires, and look, like I said, I'm a young coach, so my network's smaller. I wanted someone I can trust. I can trust Harry Heastand with just about anything, and there was no one else. That was it. When I talked to Coach Heastand for the first time, that was it. He's somebody I've been in contact with. The moment I stopped playing at Notre Dame until today, I've probably talked to, Coach probably once a month, to be honest with you. We had a close relationship when I was a player. When I came back in 2017, he was still on staff. So there's been steps along the way where we've kept in constant communication, and he's the right person to lead this offensive line.
And just briefly on Coach Parker, when you bring in a guy that has been an offensive coordinator, when do you kind of start bouncing ideas off him? Is that something where it's an immediate thing, like, hey, once you get to know our personnel, you can do this, or kind of how do you lean on someone in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's already started. We've been going at it here for a week and a half now. Like I said, I don't try to pretend I have all the answers. If there's something that you've done somewhere else that enhances us, that makes us better, that helps put our players in a better position, I'm all ears for it. I think for Jared, it's probably, when we're watching film and he sees something that he recognizes that they've done and done well, that's probably where his comfort level is. And that's where he probably chimes in. And, when he has a question about something that they maybe didn't do, he'll ask it. And so, like I said, I'm extremely energized by the hirings. The thing that's been so fun, and I mean that, is we go into the room, we're studying our offseason cut-ups, and we're in there as a staff. Like, there are new ideas. There's new conversations. It's not just the same 5 guys sitting in a room trying to check the box, having stale conversations. No, we're at, like, how do we enhance? How do we get better? And Jared's been a part of that. Stuck's been a part of that. Coach D's been a part. Everybody has a hand in that. And so, like, meetings that you used to kind of roll your eye at, I can't wait till 1 o'clock hits. And Coach Freeman's been in when he can, and I'm sure that's his favorite part of the day too. But when you're starting to find ways to help your team be better and help your offense be better, having new ideas and new people in there, it's unbelievable. And the energy, the excitement, I don't get that riled up, but I think you can hear it. Like, it's been a really fun experience for me to sit there and see how this thing can develop and grow.
Patrick Engel is next in the front.
Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, but of the 4 offensive assistants, Harry's the only one who you would have had experience in the same program with. So how did you go about kind of expanding the network and trying to find the right fits and kind of suss that out, even with those are guys that you hadn't necessarily worked with before?
Yeah. Work ethic definitely comes up. You want to be extremely diligent in how you research and, how you kind of build a list of names. As you can imagine, when you have hirings at Notre Dame, the texts are endless, the calls are endless. You lean on the people in the profession that you trust and you talk to them. You try to weed out some names, you try to find names on your own. Stuck, for example, Coach McNulty was with him in Arizona. He brought his name up. He was on the list. You filter through 10 or 15 guys, you have a phone call and then a Zoom. And then, you go to Coach Free and you say, hey, these are the 2 guys we want to bring on campus. So names come from everywhere. We went through a process of let's get them on the phone, from the phone calls, let's pick the ones that, pass that test, get them on a Zoom. And then once you go through the Zoom calls, let's get the right 1 or 2 guys on campus. And, once you get them here, you get a really great feel for who they are and how they fit.
And we'll wrap up with Pete Byrne in the front to your right.
Hey, Tom. I'm curious, as you think about your career as it develops, how important was it to you that Coach Freeman gave you the opportunity to interview candidates and kind of take charge of that side of the ball and the experience that maybe you gained from that you probably didn't have before?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think anytime you're put in an experience that's new, you can learn a lot of lessons and it can be invaluable. I don't know where my career is going to be a year, 2 years, 5. I don't have the answers to that. I know that from December 1st hit until now, I will be a better coach moving forward. I will be a better leader moving forward because of the relationship and the interactions I've had with Coach Freeman. I know that for a fact. What that leads to, I'm not sure. I'm not really worried about that right now, but I do think there will be a time where I'll look back on this experience and understand that, it served very valuable for whatever's next.
And as you think about what you want your offense to look like, given the players you have and the staff that you now know you have around you, how much do you think it changes from what we've seen in the last 2 years?
I'll probably have a better answer for you after spring ball.
Fair.
So, no, we're always looking to improve, always looking to get better. And, I'll be able to answer that more clearly, hopefully after a few practices.
That's all the time we have. Thanks, Tommy. As a reminder for everybody in the room, all 3 coordinators will be available in the breakout session afterwards. And up next is defensive coordinator Al Golden.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Just want to start by thanking Coach Freeman for this incredible opportunity and your patience. Really grateful. Ron Powers, for all that you did, Ron, behind the scenes. Thank you so much. Father Jenkins, Jack Swarbrick. Just really grateful to be here at Notre Dame. Before I start, I do want to thank the Brown family in Cincinnati, Coach Taylor, who was incredible through this whole process and supported me, and just had an incredible experience with them. The players, not just the linebackers, but the team in general, to be in that locker room and be able to share that experience is an opportunity of a lifetime. And to be able to coach those linebackers was just incredible. So I'm really excited to be here. Just a wonderful, wonderful place. I got a chance to meet a lot of the players today. We've been working as a staff late last night. And again, most of the morning today, just putting it together. And we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to work hard to piece it together and bring out the best in all of the players. So with that, I'll just open it up to questions and we'll go from there.
Tim Priester is first in the back.
Coach Freeman alluded to that you had at least previous conversations or relationship with Jack Swarbrick. Can you characterize that, and how close or not close in the past did you come to working here at Notre Dame?
Well, it was more just the fact that, I was a head coach and we would see him at the same functions. So, obviously he was a guy that I thought highly of, and we talked a lot about the industry and about the business itself. So it was really more that than anything. But obviously this is a special place, and I'm awfully glad to be here. And it was great to see him 2 weeks ago when I did sneak back.
Could you characterize what the Super Bowl experience was like for you?
Yeah, just incredible experience. Just the preparation, all that goes into it, the game itself, just watching the players prepare and what it meant to them, the way the game unfolded. Still trying to recover from it, to be honest with you. Everybody says when you lose that game, it's really hard to recover. I didn't have much time to recover. You know, I landed at 8:30 Monday night, went in and, you know, saw everybody that I had to see. And I was here yesterday afternoon working. So that was a quick turnaround. So from that standpoint, just really, really blessed to be a part of that. I think, you know, that's a lifetime memory to be a part of that team and the run that we had. And obviously from a defensive standpoint, just what we were facing in the playoffs, you know, whether it was, you know, Henry in Tennessee or Waller and with the Raiders or obviously the Chiefs offense, just the number of issues that we had to encounter to get to where we were. And then obviously Stafford and those guys in the Super Bowl itself.
Pete Sampson is up next in the front to your left.
I was interested. There was a time where you were a first-time college head coach. What were the lessons that you had to learn quickest? What were the hardest things to figure out way back? You know, Marcus is taking a different job than you were at Temple,
sure. Yeah.
But first-time head coach is the first-time head coach. What do you have to learn the quickest?
Yeah, where to stand, right? Like where do I go? I'm always running a drill, and all of a sudden now I'm overseeing a lot of different things. So again, you can feel Marcus in his voice in terms of his leadership, his care for the players, the type of character, father and husband that he is. So, I mean, that's easy from his standpoint to just be himself. I think he's relying obviously on the support of Ron and Jack and those around him. The one thing when I did visit here, I was overwhelmed, and I said it to Ron initially. I said, I just could not believe the amount of support that's here. Whether it's the academic support, the recruiting support, the number of, you know, coaches that we have to support these young people, just a tremendous operation. And so he'll have that to rely on, but ultimately he's here because of who he is, and he's going to trust his gut and go with that. And I think from that standpoint, he'll know exactly how to lead when it's time to lead.
What made you want to jump back into the college game opposed to stay in the NFL?
Yeah. So again, I was happy in the NFL. I'm not going to lie to you. It was an incredible experience. And to be down there with Coach Taylor and the defensive staff, it was awesome. And to be able to coach players that bought into a team, like that's hard. That's hard to leave, you know? So it's conflicting when you're going through it. But at the end of the day, when Coach Kelly left, there was a time there I didn't know if Marcus was going to be the head coach, but then when he was the head coach, I listened to his press conference and I told him this at a later date. And I told my wife, I said, I share his values. I listened to his press conference and I said, you know, that would be a place that would get me back. Just what Notre Dame represents from a community standpoint, from a character standpoint, from an educational standpoint. It just meant so much to me. It's always been about the 4 C's, right? Classroom, community, on the field of competition, and then what you do in the complex. So those 4 C's make up who we are, right? And I was like listening to Marcus, and I'm like, I told my wife Kelly, I said, you know, I don't really have to change to be a partner with that guy right there. Like I was really impressed. Thanks.
Eric Hansen is next in the front to your right.
Over here, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Having not been in the college game since 2015, what do you think your NFL experience will help you with? What do you feel like I've kind of got to catch up where I'm eager to kind of, you know, sink my teeth back into the college stuff?
Yeah, so the game has evolved a lot, and the games are closer than you think now in terms of what's going on in the NFL, as you guys probably can see, and what's going on in college. Like we're getting, you know, the RPOs and the read zone things and of that nature in the NFL now. So from that standpoint, it's a little bit closer than you would imagine. I think most of the things that they're going to catch me up on is what's going on off the field, you know, from that standpoint. And so we had a meeting on that today, and we're working through that. But, you know, I would say from my experience in the NFL is about problem solving. Everybody thinks, oh, great halftime adjustments. I'm going to tell you right now, by the time you get into the NFL, you're turning around and going out. So I mean, it's a 12-minute halftime, and you know, a lot of guys have to get an IV or get medical treatment or whatever it is. So you're working. But the point I'm making is those adjustments are made after every series, and I think that's the one thing that the NFL has taught me, just how to make those adjustments and how to solve problems, because you have to be a problem solver in the NFL constantly. in terms of, you know, the matchups or who you need to eliminate on offense or those types of things. So I think from that standpoint, I feel really good about that.
This might be a little early to ask you this question. You might want to answer it in a week or two, but what's your impression of the scheme that Notre Dame has in place and the roster it has in place?
Well, we're going through the roster now, and I had a chance to meet a lot of good looking kids, a lot of smart kids. So I'm excited about that. In terms of what's in place, it's great because it's multiple, right? So it can be 4 down or it can be 3 down. You need that. We did it in both Detroit and in Cincinnati. So I think there's a lot of things there that we can build on. And again, the way Marcus and I have talked about it is it's our system. You know, we got a lot of great coaches in there. I spent the last 2 days with these guys, and there's a lot of great ideas. So it's really what we build from here. But it's like moving into a new neighborhood, right? Like, don't just take the fence down because you don't like the fence. You better find out why the fence is there, right? So that's what we're doing right now. We're not going to start just saying, hey, we're going to do this if there's no meaningful purpose for that, number one. And then number two, there's obviously great things that Marcus and that system have executed both here and previously. So let's draw on that. So to me, it's overblown. I'm 52. I've coached offense, defense, special teams. I've coached in the NFL. I've been coaching 28 years. So for me, I'm on a conceptual level. So as soon as you tell me what you call it, I'm good. I got it. Boom, going to the next thing. So I'm not really too concerned with this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way, you know, and again, it's not about I. It would never be about I. It's going to be about we. And if you have an I or me orientation, that's not going to work here.
Patrick Engel is next in the front.
Out in the front here. As a position coach in the NFL, what was your involvement in defensive game planning or scheming or whatever it might be on game day or during the week that I guess kind of lends itself to what you're going to be doing now?
Yeah, so it's very collaborative, number one. So whether it's, contributing to the early downs, you know, first and second down, those types of things, worked a lot in the red zone, worked a lot with the run game. And then ultimately you're as a staff, you're all, contributing to the game plan and ultimately what gets called on game day. So Lou did a great job down there, and he did an awesome job in his adjustments, especially in the second half in the playoffs. He was just spot on. And but there's a lot of things that go into it. And the biggest thing for me with our staff is empowering them. If you want the best out of them, give them an area that they can spearhead and bring it to the table. And then from that standpoint, get all the ideas on the table and make the best decision, for the players and for that particular concept or offense that you're facing.
All right. We have time for one question on Zoom. Brian Driscoll, go right ahead.
Hey, Coach, I just had a question. Obviously, you've been, head coach and defensive coordinator in the past, now the NFL. How would you say the NFL experience specifically sort of helped you evolve, or how did you evolve as a coach? What things did you kind of say you're coming back to college? Are there any things you say, I'm better here, I'm different here, or things like that when you look at that 6-year experience?
Yeah, I think it's been great. So big picture was awesome. So I had a chance initially to start on offense with Coach Caldwell and Jim Bob Cooter in Detroit, and got to learn their systems. That's the Peyton Manning passing game and that system. So I was able to learn that tree. Then I transitioned with Coach Patricia to defense there, and then obviously in Cincinnati. So that's a lot of systems in a short period of time. And again, probably 120 games this season. I don't know how many games we played. It just kept going. I know I started like July 18th. I just finished yesterday. So all of those, just going through it on a daily basis when all you're doing basically is football. Certainly we evaluate for the draft, but when all you're doing is football and problem solving, and you have access to this incredible resource, if you will. For instance, if somebody's really good in the red zone, you'll spend a week looking at every red zone play that team will do. If someone's really good at taking the ball away, you'll spend a week at seeing what are they doing, what are they coaching, how is that manifesting on the field, and you'll get really good at that. So I think you can drill down specifically and be more finite, and I think there's a lot more clarity in terms of how I can present it to the players 6 years later after going through that experience of just being in it every day, being able to problem solve and be able to research and present on a constant basis.
Thanks, Coach Golden. That's all the time we have.
Got it.
Up next is Special Teams Coordinator Brian Mason. Coach, if you want to start with an opening statement, go right ahead.
Appreciate it. How's it going, guys? My name is Brian Mason. You can call me Mace. Really, it's an incredible opportunity to be here. I can't thank Marcus Freeman enough for this opportunity. Had a great experience the last 5 years at the University of Cincinnati to be the special teams coordinator, and very thankful for the opportunity that Luke Fickell gave me and the University of Cincinnati afforded both me and my family. But after the season, after the Cotton Bowl, Marcus Freeman called me, and he's a close friend of mine that I've known or coached alongside for close to a decade at 3 other institutions coming into this, and really believe in him. And at the end of the day, it ended up becoming a no-brainer decision for both myself and our family. My wife and Rachel and I are both from the state of Indiana. So coming back to the state of Indiana was something we were really excited about, and being able to work and coach at an elite academic institution in combination with an elite football program, and for a head coach like Marcus Freeman, who I think we can have an incredible amount of success and a lot of fun working for, was something that we were really excited for. I love coaching special teams, have an absolute passion for it, both working with the specialists and the unique combination where you get to work with all 10 units on the football team together as one. I really believe in order for the program to be successful, for special teams to be successful, the culture of the program, the mentality of the football program, and the top fundamentals of the football program are going to be taught and developed within special teams, which will allow you to be a fundamentally sound football team, allow for your culture to help be developed and put on film through special teams, and allow you to be really successful in the football game by winning the battlefield position and generating explosive plays. So that's kind of how, I've always taught and coached through things. We're kind of working on that as an entire coaching staff, where Coach Freeman is really supportive of special teams and allowing us to kind of all work and communicate through that together. So we're all on the same page and communicating in the same way as we work to develop a more fundamentally sound football team through special teams in a lot of different ways. So happy to answer and talk to you guys about anything you guys have for special teams.
If you guys have questions for Coach Mason, raise your hand. We'll get you the mic. We'll start over with Mike Berardino in the middle to your right.
In terms of getting your top guys on there, part of all your core 4, the previous special teams coach here had his ways of convincing those guys to really want to sign up. What was your method to doing it at Cincinnati, getting your starters involved in the core 4 stuff, and how do you intend to do it here?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, there's a lot of players that obviously came to Notre Dame to play running back or linebacker, not to be on special teams, right? So there's a lot of different ways we've got to motivate them to show them how it's going to benefit themselves, how it's going to benefit our program, and how it's going to help us win games. And there's a lot of different ways in which we do that. It definitely starts at the top. If you can have the support of the head coach who can help be in your meetings and show why it's important, that's obviously going to get more people on staff and more players to be bought in. And I know Coach Freeman has coached special teams in the past and has done an unbelievable job. I know he's going to support special teams, which is going to allow us to be really successful. And then there's a lot of different ways we show guys through examples of other really good programs that are really good on special teams, and where do those players play and how many of their starters are major contributors on special teams. And we've already kind of gone through that as a staff to look at other playoff teams or some of the other top teams in America, and how many of their starters are on special teams compared to where Notre Dame's been, and how can we better utilize some of our players to find specific spots for them to contribute to help us win games. In addition to, hey, you might not be on the punt return team, but when we do punt return drills and fundamentals, it's going to help you develop as a fundamental total football player that can help you play at the next level. So then showing guys examples of, how it's going to help you increase your draft status, or when you get to the NFL, if you have some of those skills and fundamentals developed here at Notre Dame.
Was Cincinnati and Notre Dame, were they kind of similar in terms of those percentages of starters, or could you share some of that research, some of the quantifying?
They were not similar.
No. And then what's maybe your area of expertise? What is the thing that really lights you up about special teams? What do you look for in those guys in terms of coverage or whatever, and anything that you love to see on your special teams guys?
I don't know if there's one area. I mean, for me, we're going to be aggressive and we want to be creative. So we do not want to be conservative. We want to find different ways that we can apply pressure and stress to our opponent to create chaos in the football game. And that's what really gets me, excited about it. Find different ways that we can be aggressive, enhance, adapt, and be creative to find advantages in the football game.
Pete Sampson is next in the front to your left.
You mentioned sort of believing in Marcus Freeman, probably going back to Purdue, I would imagine. Like, what was it about him back then that just sort of made you be like, this is a guy that I need to get to know better?
So I first worked with him at Kent State and then Purdue and then Cincinnati. He was actually, somebody that put me in touch with Luke Fickell, who got me that connection to get hired by him. But you could just tell even early on and early in his coaching career, when I worked together with him at Kent State, that he's going to be a star. Like, there's something special about the way he communicates. He's got natural leadership to him, the way he relates to players, recruits. You could just tell he was going to be a really successful football coach. And obviously, as he's gotten more and more experience, he's gotten even better.
There seems to be a real intention from you, like with the preferred walk-ons bringing in next year to like increase the compete level, or guys you have as options in the kicking game. Like, how intentional were you with that? Why is that something important to create?
Certainly across every position, we want to have depth and we want to have competition. So every single position on the football team, we want it to be competitive. Competition breeds success. When I first came in here, there were currently 4 specialists on the roster. So 2 kickers, both of which are true freshmen, 2 long snappers, both who had some experience. We didn't have any true punters currently on the roster. Bryce McPherson will be joining us in June. So obviously, looking at the numbers, for me to have depth, to be able to have competition and growth for the future, I believe you need 8 to 10 specialists between kickers, punters, and long snappers to be able to do that. And obviously we had 4 with a 5th coming. We needed some more experience. We needed some more competition to be able to kind of offset at certain positions where maybe we were a little bit inexperienced, having to replace a starting kicker and a starting punter. And, how can we be able to add some experience and some leadership in addition to some competition in different areas where we're still talented, but maybe young.
Tim Priester is next in the back.
Coach, I believe you had 6 block kicks, whether it was kicks or punts. What's the key to success and consistency in doing that?
Making it a really big point of emphasis and, being aggressive. Obviously, there's a lot of teams in the return game, or whether it's field goal block or it's punt block, that maybe are very conservative. I think a lot of teams in college football are conservative, because if you're aggressive, you might run into the punter. But, I believe one little, motto of mine is don't live your life in fear. We're going to be aggressive and we're going to be smart. We're not going to be worried about running into the kicker or running into the punter. We're going to try to affect the kicker or affect the punter, just like the defense does on 3rd down when they try to affect the quarterback. So we're not going to try to sit back and always be conservative in different things. We want to constantly be able to apply pressure to affect the quarterback, to affect the kicker and affect the punter, just like the defense does the quarterback. And through making it a point of emphasis, working on it, and being aggressive, it has allowed us to have a lot of fun and be successful doing it.
Most kickers and punters have their own gurus and they go to their camps.
Yeah.
How involved do you get with the technique of the kickers and punters?
Certainly, a lot of those guys have somebody that maybe they worked with regularly in high school and coming up, and it helps even in the off season where we're not allowed to have maybe a lot of on the field coaching time with the football with those guys. So it does help to have somebody that works with them. So I'll work in conjunction, depending on who that person is, to work with them, to share film and ideas and coaching points with those guys. But we'll still have position meetings and work through the technique and the fundamentals of all the timing of our operation with all the kickers, punters, and long snappers as well.
Tyler James is next in the middle to your left.
Brian, sort of piggybacking off of that, special teams is so wide ranging. How did you go about learning what makes a good long snapper, what makes a good kicker, what makes a good punter, and all the other positions you have on special teams? How have you sort of gained all that knowledge to become who you are today?
Certainly it's been an experience, over time. I first started working with special teams at Kent State. So over the last decade or so, I've gained more experience and more knowledge as I've worked with specialists and special teams and kind of adapted as I've gone throughout, learning from other really good coaches and surrounding myself in different areas where maybe I have a weakness or don't know certain things. So myself, and we have a special teams analyst, Jesse Schmidt, who's a former player of mine at Purdue, will be able to kind of tag team and work through the specialists and all those different areas.
And with recruiting, you're not going to be always able to recruit a scholarship player at all those different specialist positions throughout every recruiting cycle, what other sort of recruiting impact do you feel like you can have on the staff?
Yeah, so I also will assist with the defense. Everywhere I've been, I've coached with defense and special teams. So certainly I'll still be able to assist with Coach Golden and help coach with the defense and recruit with the defense, in addition to helping recruit specialists. So we'll be able to help recruit and do all those things with the defense as well.
That's all the time we have in here, Coach Mason. Thank you very much. All the media members can head over to the Chivalry Lounge where we'll start the breakout interviews. The coordinators will be up first.